Alright folks, it is once again time for some 4v4 match mode analysis. Replay analysis on Riviera. We've got a pretty interesting match here, which I think shows off some of the strategic plays that are made on Riviera from the USSR side. I think in previous Riviera videos I've done, we've been from the NATO side. So I thought this one was pretty interesting. We might watch it from the USSR. So let me go ahead and skip forward here to the start of the match. But the teams are interesting here. On NATO, we have some pretty strong match mode players. We got Knife and Ponter, of course, who are going to be rocks of that team, and Tenerifus and Kickapoo are also extremely competent. So that's going to be a strong team to beat. On the USSR side, we have some old vets. General Lennon's been playing with us for a while, so he's shaken off the rust a bit faster. So has Red Rum. He had been playing a bit before this, but this match a few weeks ago when we played it, this would be Cool Douche's either second or third match back, so I think he'd probably want me to throw a disclaimer on there that he's got some serious rust going on right now. So we'll see how that affects the game and plays out when our armor player is a bit rusty. And so we got a pretty standard Riv opening here shaping up. We're gonna try and get the points that we should get. We got Mansion, Farm, and we're about to get the fire base here. And the plan is to push Windmill. And so we can see support is already moving that way. He's got a couple heavy AA, med AA combos set up. And I'll comment on that. This type of support is very good if you're playing against a competent or good air player, which he is. He's playing against Knife, I believe, here. I think Knife went air, yeah. And so Knife is very good at air. And what the heavy AA med AA combo does is it allows you to shoot the scout even when the flares are working. So if you have an air player that knows how to use flares, then look, he's going to eat that scout up real quick. Now, I think that scout did take some missiles there, but the point is the med AA is able to shoot without worrying about the flares, and it kind of puts some damage on that scout while the flares are still active. I've got a reg over near Windmill, trying to keep it. Will give us some vision, I should say, and also some passive anti-air. So if Knife comes over and tries to airbang us there, I'll at least be able to launch a Stinger missile every now and then to supplement support. So support and armor there are getting a little bit out ahead of each other, but nothing you can really do but try and do that, because the way the curvature of the hill goes here, armor needs to move up in attempts to shoot things so we can make a push, but support can't quite follow him because he won't want to get shot up by the enemy armor. And the enemy armor is, I got two heavies there, one of them is ranked, so he'll be pretty effective at shooting AA as it crests the hill. This is a good spot here for this heavy tank. This heavy tank's going to be doing some work on the hill. That'll help a bit. Eventually he might be able to move up a little bit further at the farm to get some more shots, further down on the hill. But right now he's able to work on the heavy tank. And Dan's doing a good job. General is doing a good job here of taking out the scout and forcing Knife to retreat. But Knife saved all of his heavies, so he'll just repair up and be right back at it. So not altogether a huge victory. I mean, Knife is just a good air player, so he saved his full air set. And they're going to keep trying to drop on us back here. This is an interesting, because clearly we know that's coming down. So there's no chance it's going to survive. They did, I mean, they at least tried to clear my drop out of there with light arty first. But I mean, once you know that people are watching for backfill drops, I don't see a lot of benefit in doing them. And so let's check into the inf game here. When you're windmill pushing from USSR side, there's not a ton for USSR inf to do, aside from play defensively, which is what I'm doing. I've already done defensive drops up here at the fire base. Typically on this map, that's either my second or third drop from this side, just to prevent any commando operations from taking place up there. Those are kind of important. I'm also trying to get a reg into this forest to assist with the windmill push, because that will both take shots at the air. This might be able to, I'm going to move him up probably and try and hit that AA a little bit, make sure they feel unsafe there. And it gives vision, so this is giving us sight on like a good amount of stuff there. I still got my reg alive over here. That's been helpful, at least to help see the enemy air coming in. Looks like we finally might be making some progress on the windmill push here. We need air to go in and clear the forts, which he's going to do. We might have considered using TA just to clear that faster so we don't lose the initiative. Now that we're reinforcing, got plenty of AA and a full health 2-bar heavy tank. So this push also may fizzle out, especially because the air is going to be ready to come and attack us. Now as infantry, I can see this isn't going that well. We're not quite making any breakthroughs there. So the trouble as USSR is that when you can't capture this, then NATO is free to do their dominant strategy on this map. And unfortunately, this is one of the reasons I don't really like this map much. Oh, that heavy tank just got picked off by air. But the reason I don't like this map that much is because NATO really has but one option, and that's to defend the points they should defend, and then nuke this area here. And once they nuke, push into farm and mansion, and keep mansion decapped and try and cap farm every now and then, and do some commando operations up here. And that's tough for NATO because these operations should not work if the air player takes the time to help the inf kill drops, and the inf should have defensive drops there. So that should not work. And mansion is very difficult for NATO to cap because they got to go through this little pass here. The unit pathing on this map is terrible. And same with farm, like to get to this back point, it's a little bit tricky. They're very far away from their supply lines when USSR spawns like right here. So it's difficult to play as NATO because basically all you can really do is save up for a nuke or some big TA expenditure to help you work over the enemy and move into farm. They're still doing their best here. What I was getting ready to say earlier is I noticed that this wasn't going well. So I'm trying kind of some stealth operations in town, and their inf didn't really react too quickly to this, and so they developed a major problem. I mean, look at this. This is really bad for them. They have an absolute infestation on their hands, and so pretty soon I'm going to make the call to switch to town push.
That vehicle is a wreck. They're taking hits. You lost a unit.
And I mean, they've gotten completely wrecked over here on the left anyway. I mean, they got a AA just chasing in the spawn. I mean, it was dead. See, they're to switch town push now. I wrote that in the chat because I didn't want to broadcast over TeamSpeak because I think we were hanging out in TeamSpeak with Ponter and a few others. But yeah, so they're gonna pivot, and it's not gonna be that hard. They just gotta kind of change their spawns, because most everything was dead anyway. So this is going to be good because they got lots of stuff over here because they're in full defense of that. And infantry is doing their best to get me out of this thing over here, but you know, they've only got a few drops in town, and I'm trying to kill them. I'm dropping some more. I'm not quite as strong in town as I was a moment ago, so we're already losing the initiative. It's important that my team go into town push really quick. So there's probably infantry in here that I'm going to try and get with a direct arty. The difficulty here is that given NATO has like a lot of good sniper spots up here, I'm not even going to try and hold this forest because it's just going to be a losing battle. I'm going to use the buildings, and it's going to work pretty well for me. But it's going to be harder for the ground guys because they might have to contend with enemy inf in this forest. We might have considered just burning it. Especially, I should have considered burning it because I made the call that I was just not going to try and take it, really. Air is doing the right thing from their side and just trying to pound my buildings. We should really be able to cap this here without much problem. I think we just lost some direct darting there. I put down a heavy arty barrage, which is going to be pretty nice because it's going to make it difficult for them to reinforce this.
We defeated an enemy.
We should get this cap.
Target defeated.
Man, we really need to get this cap. We need a lot more light tanks on the field. I think that's a bit of rust showing for our armor. Yeah, just there he had 3 heavies and only 1 light on the field. For doing something like this, there aren't a lot of like good tank sniping spots for armor when you're doing town push. When you're doing town push, it's not really about slogging away with armor. That's what it's about up here. When you're doing the windmill, you want to try and work them over with heavy tanks and lights shooting AA. You want to try and win the battle like that. It's a shame we couldn't deny this, but I think he was having trouble shooting because of the building. But as armor, when you're doing the town push, you kind of just got to get a little spammy and just send a bunch of light tanks in there and put the light tank missiles into the AA. I mean, because if you have so much noise going on, assuming you're in a 4v4, it's difficult for the air player to kill everything that comes in. Especially if you got, like, if you're blobbing kind of some AA with your push. Unfortunately, what it comes down to in this game sometimes when you really need to make a push in an area is you get a little bit blobby with light units in AA and hope that no TA really comes down on you. I mean, because a heavy air support would get you. Artillery would slow you down. But a lot of times people don't think to put big TA expenditures down when they see just light units because they're like, well, I don't want to waste a heavy air support when they just got like 3 light tanks and 2 AA. And they're partially right. They should be able to kill that naturally. But not before, you know, the team gets a cap and it helps you get some TA inflow going.
You lost a unit.
Knife is having one heck of a game at air. He's clearing these forts here because they might be trying to. Well, I mean, I'm sure they're trying to look at a farm push here. I would almost prefer that he loiter here. Forts can be so easily cleared with just a couple tank busts. Oh my goodness, that was despicable. It's 4 jeeps lost to a cluster bomb. There's a very, very big jeep killing zeitgeist going on right now. I don't know if I like it too much, but people just need to move the jeeps around. And when we get eyes, when eyes are gotten on the jeeps, they especially have to be moved. I don't know how they saw those. Maybe air got close enough to see them. Or maybe there's an insurgent back here somewhere. Insurgent infantry.
Unit killed. They're under fire.
NATO is reacting in force here. I think they're finally going to be able to kick us out of town soon. The problem with town push on this map is that it's really just not sustainable. Because in this game, infantry 1 fights are not exactly sustainable because the buildings die. Look at all the dead buildings here. These are mostly dead, the ones that are still standing. Like there's some good ones, but it can hardly shoot points. So the sustainable pushes are the ones with heavy tanks. You get ranked heavy tanks. Those you can just hold forever. But the buildings, when you're infantry, eventually get worn down. Buildings can't be repaired, obviously, like heavy tanks can be repaired. So I typically advocate on Riviera to go for the windmill push. That said, it's becoming so predictable because I've been advocating for it and been so loud about it. I'm having concerns that NATO is so ready to always hold Windmill with all of their might, that it's not going to work anymore, and we're going to have to pivot to town pushes like this. And so, I mean, I guess this match then is a good example of what you can do when a team, NATO team, goes so all in on Windmill, as they probably should. But this is an example of what you can do to stop that. And I think what really ended up sinking NATO in this fight is that they just let my inf get in there and cause too much of an infestation, and it took them a while to undo it. I mean, I still have an AT operating. I mean, he's low health, but this might be where he dies here. Am I going to try and deny with that low health? I wish I maybe didn't do that, but I guess I thought I had another AT inf there.
You have incoming reinforcements, Commandeer.
But again, what I did as inf was, while they were working in the Windmill and I had a reg, I had at least a reg presence up there to kind of give them vision, and I had some drops around. I had fulfilled all my basic responsibilities of holding this forest and this one, and my defensive drops here. But at that point, I started just with a truck and a spawn. I would ferry some infantry up, run them through this little pass here into the town, and I get them back in these buildings where they couldn't be seen at first, and they weren't causing too much of a ruckus, so nobody on the team really cared about it. I don't even know if they maybe didn't even notice. Infantry probably should have had some token defensive drops back there that would have noticed, but I mean, I went largely stealth and got us a good chunk of Dombar. I mean, on this map, because it's, I think I just heard a nuke. I was talking over it, so I'm not sure, but I do think they nuke us here. But on this map, you're fighting for just little bits of Dombar because it's so stagnant. There's never, well, I mean, in equilibrium for this map, you have no arrows. You can't say that for Seaside. You can't say that for Hometown. Usually on those two maps with all the points capped, there's one arrow going some way.
You can request new units now.
And NATO, of course, did what they needed to do with the nuke. I mean, I think it was a little bit less effective for them here because we were a bit more spread out. Because they hadn't really fully contained us yet. They hadn't beaten us back from that town push. We still had some effectiveness there. And so we cap everything up real quick. And that nuke may be just too little too late for NATO. I may try a little bit more to move infantry into town, but I'm probably going to forget about that, at least doing it organically. I might try and drop some airbornes in there, but I think now I'm going to try and do a little bit of reg spam here. I generally don't do a lot of reg spam, but I can tell Knife is just having a killer game. I mean, I haven't commented on it yet, but he's running around with general choppers, generals and two captains right now. I think he lost a general or a captain earlier. The guy was a maniac in this game, killing absolutely everything. Just nothing was staying alive. And that general is going to make it out of there somehow. Just very good micro, very good handling. I put a heavy airstrike down here to help us cap Mansion, and we're going to get Mansion. I mean, right now, my plan is we just have to not lose here. Because they need to make a significant push on the Dombar with a minute 40 left. So these guys that I dropped early on in the game, I maybe might have considered putting them on waypoints in case I forgot to look at them, and it would make it harder for enemy airbornes to already them if I just forgot about them for a minute. Doing a looped waypoint, you can close the loop and they'll just keep running back and forth forever in a patrol. So that's a good idea. I just was being lazy and didn't do it. I'm trying to get forts back up here. That's an important thing for infantry to remember. I'd say infantry is primarily the biggest forting guy on the team. You need to, if you are infantry, you need to understand the importance of having forts up in the backfield and know that it is okay to spare a reg or two to put forts in the backfield. Usually, at the beginning of the game, you'll want to put forts up with your trucks, But towards the end of the game,
We're under fire.
when the buildings are dead and whatnot, if you're using your regs to put
They're taking
um,
hits.
your forts up, I think that's usually a pretty decent idea. So we're gonna get another mansion cap. I think we had some combo drops up here that we capped it or decapped it, and that's all we needed to do.
You lost a unit.
We needed to decap things here to make sure they couldn't total dom us, because at that point, if you're NATO, you have to be playing for the total dom. Look at this. Knife has 2 general choppers right now.
5.
And he's got a private, so he must have suffered a loss. So that when he lost must have been a captain or something crazy. But yeah, so there we go. I'll point out that NATO
They are engaging us. Destroy the
outscored
enemy.
us by, what, 250 points? So this was a good, I mean, that indicates that, you know, we kind of had the superior strategy, I guess. We didn't fully win our engagements, but we still pushed the Dom bar enough that we took home the victory. The big old nuke crater, that is what NATO has to do. It just didn't quite work out for them because they were never able to fully contain our push and make us consolidate into one spot. And that's what you have to do. Yeah, as NATO, you just have to be able to conventionally push USSR back into their spawn area and make them bunch up and then get them ready for that nuke. And it just didn't quite work out for them, although it did put us on the ropes. And had this game lasted another 5 minutes, had the timer not stopped it, I think NATO would have eventually won, because they were beating us in air, they were beating us in armor, support, and Inf was pretty much out of the game at this point because there were no buildings or forests or anything left. So we got out of this match in the nick of time. Notable that they never tried to cap Firebase. Perhaps that is respect for me, because maybe they know that I already had defensive drops. But I mean, the hillside's basically unmolested. Like this still, if you just look at this, nothing happened here. This was just a perfectly normal day at the French Riviera. But if you look at the town and church area, whew, what a fight! I believe those were Med-Arty strikes there. I don't even know if that was. I don't think that was napalm. I think there was a Med-Arty. I didn't even comment on it, but there's tons of craters everywhere. Kind of a bloodbath. Same up here. This was a hard-fought match, but USSR came out victorious. Just it's the nature of Riviera. You push one way, it doesn't work. You push the other. GG, guys.